buying apartments is buying a business, so you're buying that operating income. You're paying more for the same $100,000 of income from an A-class property than you are from a B and C-class property.
Welcome into the Get Invested podcast, a podcast about all things real estate and real estate investing, brought to you by Capital Velocity Investments and a part of the Matthias Talks Investing Substack.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Get Invested podcast with your host. I'm Jordan.
I'm Matthias.
I had to set him up for that one. Make sure you said both of the things this time.
I remember.
All right. Well, we are Jordan and Matthias, and we are very excited to be here with you today, as always, to talk all things real estate investing and real estate investing. Today's topic is going to be a little more on the philosophical side, but I'm excited about it because I think it's something that drives us both. But before we get into that, I guess we got to know, Matthias, we got a first item on the agenda. How was the cruise, other than fairly incommunicado? But that's just my gripe.
It was good. It's exhausting chasing two little kids around a ship, but we all had a blast. Weather was good enough that we made it in and out before that. Obviously, this hurricane, as we speak, is still wreaking havoc down there, but we made it in and out of the Caribbean before that really started causing damage. But there was like all that kind of weather associated with it was hanging around. So we did have some weather issues where we couldn't get out and do stuff, but we got to do plenty. Lots of food. We had Coco Cay. We had great weather for Coco Cay, which is everybody's favorite. It's the little private islands they have where they got water slides and water parks and beaches and snorkeling and everything you could possibly imagine. So no, it was good. It was exhausting. Like I said, we all came home and slept for an entire weekend, but it was great. Even got to see Chiefs game. That game went pretty well. So no complaints. That was a Raiders game. We won, I think it was 31-0.
Oh, I was trying to remember which game it was. They just. I was thinking of.
We won Monday night too, as we record this.
Yeah. Patrick was being particularly Patrick. And Mariota. Oh, poor Mariota.
Yeah, he had a good first half.
Well, anywho, I've always wondered. I guess I could look up the architecture of these ships, but I just haven't got around to it. But when there's weather, I'm assuming that there are indoor facilities. You can go do other things that are indoors.
Most of the ship is indoors. There's a whole promenade indoors with shops and restaurants. There's like splash pads and pools, and then the water slides, and there's even a wave on the back of the ship. There's like a little surf simulator back there. And there's a rock climbing wall. Ethan loves a rock climbing wall.
Okay.
So they close in bad weather. They'll close down certain outside portions. Typically, it's the wind that makes it unstable. Like you don't really want people walking around out there on the deck with the 40-knot winds blowing around.
Right.
That kind of thing. So that's what closes it down. But there's plenty to do inside.
I always just figured there's like huge sun decks and things that people can go outside for.
Yeah, there's that too. I mean, running track, there's everything.
I wonder what the distance is around if they had a running track around the entirety of the.
Well,
I know it's not
pretty good.
Like,
it's pretty good on the bigger ships. So some of them have the running track up on top, and that's not very big because it kind of goes like this. But some of them have them down on like deck 4 or 5, which is basically, I don't know, a story or two above the water, and those you could be running for a hot minute on the outside of all the way around. So depending on the size of the ship, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't know.
All around good time. No complaints.
Good.
We had a great time.
Rachel, while you guys were gone, Rachel was like, "Are you sure you never want to go on a cruise?" And I was like, I'm like, what are we? I feel like seeds are being planted here. I was like, I told you, river cruise in Europe, sure. I don't know about the rest. And she's like, okay. I'm like, what's happening here? Well, not a lot happened while you were gone. I don't even remember really what happened.
Something with your sister's birthday, I thought.
Well, I went down and hung out with my sister for her birthday, yeah. We just hung around her house and then took her daughter to multiple things and hung out ourselves. We walked around the historic district of Greensboro, which is pretty cool. Not Greensboro, I'm sorry, Greenville, South Carolina, which is cool. It's a nice area. Saw a cat just walked up to us and we're like, whoa, so what's up? And then my sister's initial reaction was like, oh no, this cat lost. And having just dealt with this, I'm not going to assume
leave the cat be
outside that they're lost. He doesn't seem that bad off. And then not 30 minutes later, we have gone to another area of downtown, and there's a poster for a lost cat, and it was an
Was
orange
it the same?
tabby, just like the one we saw. No, we reached out. Turns out not the same cat, but I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was just like, no, this cat's not lost. He probably just goes outside. But the posters were all on like the other side of kind of a main thoroughfare, and so we didn't see it for a while, and we're like, well, do they think it just won't cross the road? I don't know. I don't know. Anyways,
That's funny.
but no, she texted and they were like, no, that's not. He doesn't hang out there. I was like, well, I mean, he could, but no, it wasn't. They literally texted us back later and they're like, hey, we found him. No worries.
Nice.
We're like, oh, okay.
Good.
But yeah, I mean, have fun doing that. My sister is like project queen, man. She has so many things going on around her house, like plantings and growing vegetables and herbs and seedlings, and they're always doing stuff to the house. And
That's cool. I wish I had time for that. That would be nice. It sounds cool. I'd love to have herbs and stuff. We've tried.
I mean, you know, she's got chickens. There's 3 cats, 2 dogs.
Basically a farm.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, you should not have bought a house, a forever home in downtown Greer. You should have bought one like out somewhere. Well, yeah. So she's gone. She what's it called, PRN, which is as a nurse, you just get called in when you're needed, and like they haven't needed her for like a month or a month and a half. So I think she's just been like finding things. So, yeah. And speaking of the Chiefs, just to circle back, I'm getting pretty excited about that coming up in less than a month.
Yeah, we've been in a flurry of final planning, making sure that we've got transportation figured out, finalizing the slapping names to tickets and seats and stuff like that, and figuring all that out. So I'm in the process. I've never, so like the Chiefs app is in conjunction, like they have a deal with Ticketmaster. So it's like they're like married up the accounts. And so I'm working on getting all the tickets and stuff on my phone to make sure that before we get to, you never want to start trying to download stuff in a busy pregame parking lot. That would be a bad plan. No. So I'm trying to make sure I got all that squared away before we head to the game. But yeah, we're looking forward to it too. And then it'll be Thanksgiving week, so it's just a good week.
It's gonna be a jam-packed time for sure. I fly back and actually go to see the parents, of course, for Thanksgiving. Then we drive down to see the State Carolina game, which probably just going to be a duel to see who's, I don't know, less bad or the worst. I don't know which way they're going to go with it, honestly.
Yeah,
but it's a Thanksgiving tradition. But yeah, you talking about transportation the other day, getting a bus, that gave me flashbacks about when I was a debate coach and I was scheduling 2 charter buses for like 100 kids. That's not an exaggeration. Over 100 children, and then chaperones and judges and stuff. So I know that pain. At least most of the people coming are reasonable adults.
Yeah, well, at least when we arrive to the game, they should.
Yeah, yeah. They start as adults, mostly reasonable.
We'll start reeling that back after the game, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of being reasonable, I guess it's probably reasonable of us to go ahead and move on to our topic today. You know what? Normally I give a little preview and then pass it over to you, but I think I'm just going to pass it over to you to get us into what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about a kind of a why behind, our primary focus of B class workforce housing, kind of why it aligns so well with kind of our goals and our mission, and in some ways that it helps us achieve basically all of our goals and what we're trying to accomplish, and with investors, both investors and as providing a service to tenants. So we like to start off, basically everybody knows America has a problem with affordable housing. So a lot of this is caused by every time you can't build affordable housing without like significant tax credits, and it's not really feasible for developers to get tax credits, or even municipalities to give out tax credits everywhere. It's just not a thing. Nobody has that kind of sway all the time. So what are the biggest problems is that older housing typically ends up being the older it is, the lower in grade it gets, B, C, D class housing. And that's something that we like to fix, because basically it ages, and if it's not run properly, it becomes untenable for people to live in. It becomes a dilapidated home, a slum, as it were. That's a real problem with aging properties built in the 70s, 80s, 90s, things like that. If they're not updated, they're not kept up right, they start turning down, and that is the primary source of affordable housing for people, other than new development with tax credits attached to it, because it's too expensive to build houses and rent them on a lower level. So what they build is they build luxury apartments, which does help, because then you get what's called filtering, where people who can afford it go, hey, I want to stay in a night. They move out of the B class, and that opens up space in the B class, and so on and so forth. But the best way that I can help provide more affordable housing is to buy rundown, dilapidated B and C class properties, fix them up to where they should be or could be, and rent them out to our workforce, blue collar, young professional, young families, that kind of thing, or even aging population, who fixed income types. That's really what we're trying to provide, that housing, our kind of ideal tenants, depending on where the specific market location and all that. But that's generally what we try to accomplish.
Yeah. So just speaking to the general, I guess, market dynamics, I would say that maybe overall they fall into the same boat, but there's a difference in between building houses and building multifamily stuff as well, as far as like the approach, the hoops you got to jump through,
Sure.
negotiating with municipalities or whatever, zoning, however the situation may be. I think that's why a lot of times there is a lot more like a residential kind of like neighborhoods will pop up that are all new, rather than like big multifamily things. Because that one has to be more, seems to be, in my experience, living in areas that have had development and growth. That's the one that has to have more negotiation than, a developer buys a plot of land and is like, I'm going to build 50 homes on this. Now, whether or not he can build certain types of homes and he or she can build certain types of homes, that's a different conversation. But
it depends. Like it depends on the zoning and the type, because it has to be high density if you're going to build multifamily, but it doesn't have to be high density if you're going to build a neighborhood. So yeah, very much. It depends on the specific municipality, if they're trying to attract high density multifamily to meet a need of a higher population with less space. It all depends, So yes, it can be. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but yes, it's different hoops, different processes.
And I mean, since we're talking mainly about multifamily, I just wanted to make sure that we narrowed that in. I mean, this is just a side note, but apparently there's no market for building like a small bungalow neighborhood, because all new neighborhoods are like 2,000 square feet or more, I feel like, or 1,800 at least. There's no like, hi, come, it's just you and the wife. Here's 1,200 square feet. Buy a reasonable size place. There's none of that.
They don't build those anymore. And that's the problem. It's like the cost per square foot goes up the smaller you get, because there's all those fixed costs of the land, the permitting, all that stuff is the same. Doesn't matter if you're building a 5,000 square foot house or a 1,500 square foot house. Yeah. And so the builders often aim for somewhere in the middle where they can get their return, on their investment and be compensated for their risk. And so, yeah, that's exactly it. Is it's often easier to build bigger and more cost effective to build bigger and more luxury than it is to build for the affordable that we're trying, the problem that we're all trying to solve.
Right. I will say two things. One, the fact that you just said older housing, that we're buying older housing that was built in the 70s, 80s, and 90s made me sad. That it's old housing that we're buying from.
I was made in the 80s. Yeah, fair.
The second thing I would say, just go back to what I was talking about, walking around with my sister. We were having the opposite conversation, which is it's kind of like the same thing on the other side, which is the historic districts and all those really nice older houses. They all need a lot of work too, but nobody can be willing to come in and say like, I'll buy one of these and then do the work and fix it up, because the price is high on those too, because you're essentially buying time, because it's in like an old neighborhood. It's got incredible trees, right? Like old, nice road. It's like they don't build houses.
And the location
like
is
anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they don't build a Dutch colonial like that anymore, right? Like you're just not going to see it. And then of course, so it's interesting that there's a very narrow band of like, okay, this is an older house that is not wanted because it's old, rather than it is wanted because it's old. To move to multifamily though, and what we're trying to do to move back to that. So when you're going into that, I don't know. I'm trying to decide how we want to best approach how we talk about this. Do we want to talk about this as far as like how we're coming into it and why? Yes, but also how we present it to others. I feel like that's part of this conversation. Like investors, potential investors, prospective investors, like seeing what we're doing and understanding it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of both. I mean, the part of why this is a lucrative business is because there's so much demand for affordable housing. We're identifying a need in the marketplace and we're providing that need. And that's, and, we're being compensated for that as investors, real estate investors. So yes, from the investment side, but also providing a valuable, you know what I mean? It goes hand in hand. We're providing a valuable service, and
Yes.
that is why we're making money on it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so I think what I was really thinking about was we have had conversations before, and I think even probably written stuff and whatever about presenting investment opportunities to the new investor.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And then seeing what we are talking about and then not really connecting why this is the good investment that it is. And then of course, the fact that it is a new investor is kind of the point. So I guess maybe we should do let's talk about why it's an economic advantage, and then maybe we can talk about why it's a mission philosophical.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, let's go economic first. Yeah. So one, workforce housing is probably the most high demand of all. That, like, luxury housing is a smaller pool. Workforce housing is obviously the vast majority of people will stay in work for B, C class housing. They're not going to be in your high rise loft, downtown penthouse type stuff, or in your McMansion down over the hill. But most of the people are going to be in some area of the workforce housing. So we're the most protected against, in my opinion, against an economic downturn. Now, depending on the downturn, there could be a lot of blue collar jobs being lost in the area, and this is why location is so important, and diverse work opportunities, employment environment is very important for choosing location too. But all things being equal, we're more protected because as recession hits, people downsize, people go down from that luxury loft apartment. They go, hey, well, I'll stay in the mostly as nice B class apartment that Matthias and his investors own because I can afford this. It's more affordable than I'll move back whenever things take off again. But for now, I'm gonna move down into this. So there's more demand across the board for a B and C class apartment than there is for an A class. Because it only, you know what I mean? A class is going to go one way. B, I could get people moving up. I get people coming down, people staying, people downsizing, whatever. So that's one of the reasons why we choose B. It's better, in my opinion, it's better hedged against potential recession, economic issues, broader economic issues. And as a part of that, well, I guess kind of next to that, we'll say cap rates for the luxury apartments tend to be lower, meaning people will accept less cash for their invested dollar in a luxury apartment than for, and it's typically because of the age of the property. Like we talked about earlier, your affordable housing is going to be typically a little bit older property. It's not as a premium. It hasn't been built, maybe it's 10, 20, 30 years old, etc. So an investor is going to demand more dollars per invested dollar, a higher capitalization rate for those properties, which means basically you're going to, all else being equal, you're going to get more cash flow per dollar on a affordable housing property than you would for a luxury property. Now, obviously, there's a whole bunch of different facets and variables that can go into that. So, your A class investment may have performed way better, depending on whatever else is going on, than a B class or so on. But all things being equal, you're going to expect more cash flow per invested dollar in a B class property.
Well, and especially one that is a value add property, right? One that isn't living up to its potential in part because it's old and hasn't been maintained, but could be. And therefore,
yeah, could be. I mean, not necessarily. Yeah. Let's say they're both being operated perfectly. You're going to get, because of the cap rate, you're going to pay more to get into the A class property per cash flow. Let's talk, buying apartments is buying a business. So you're buying that operating income. You're paying more for the same $100,000 of income from an A class property than you are from a B and C class property, if that makes sense. So you're expecting more cash flow per dollar invested out of the older properties is typically how that's going to work. That's the rate that investors trade at.
Right. So Well, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying, are we talking about just strictly investor expectation,
Mm-hmm.
or the fact that it will indeed actually deliver that? Because, I mean, if you buy at a higher cap rate, you're getting a property for a lower amount, and therefore, that that cash flow could be.
It's the same. It's because that's where investors trade at. So I mean,
Yeah.
the market sets the market every time. So who will buy this property? Nobody's going to buy this property until you lower the price, and so that you're getting more cash flow per dollar on a older property, because it's just not. I mean, it's going to require more work. It's an older property. It's going to need more maintenance, so on. So that's kind of how best to look at it.
Yeah, and I was going to say I mean I have to say right up front, this is something that I learned early on when I started doing this with Matthias. But I don't know, maybe it's just because I spent so long in academia and education, like A, B, C, D mean things to me that maybe they don't mean to like everyone else. And especially since like I even think like grade inflation has like affected my view of these letters. I want to say for the record that I learned very early that a B class, there's B plus, B minus, there's the range, but a B class apartment is most of the apartments you're going to see.
Yes.
It's not like something that you hear that and you're like, oh, that's somewhere I might not want to live. So you probably lived in it because it's just a standard apartment. It's not, that's if you lived in a new-ish B apartment complex, you were living in a good place. Like you were living in a place you thought was like super nice, especially if you're right out of college and you're out of student housing, which is probably C.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Or even worse. I mean, I've seen some real rough.
Yeah, I definitely stayed in you saw my first apartment in Chapel Hill, or I wasn't even Chapel, I was in Carborough, but that was definitely C.
Yeah. Yep.
So just put that clarification out there, like B actually means what B should mean in the world, which for those of y'all forgot, B means above average as far as a rating scale goes.
think so. C is like a C or C plus is perfectly good house or housing with everything's clean, everything's functional, no problems. B is the same, but you start adding in like amenities. Okay, this one might have a washer dryer hookup in the unit, or maybe a pool on site, or a exercise room, or whatever. Like, so you start adding amenities above us. C is just good, solid housing. But most people, when they go to, if they have their druthers, they'd go, hey, I'd live in a B class because now I have on-site laundry, or even in my unit, or these other amenities. And then when you get to class A, it's like, oh, I have a trash service. Somebody will come and collect my trash for me, or this, you know what I mean? Like, it's luxury stuff that with super clubhouse and a movie theater on site and things like that.
Movie theater on site, that might have not aged well as an enticement these days. But
well, interestingly enough, that people have, like, we got into, I think in the mid 2010s when we were really building a lot of stuff. I think people got into, this is kind of an aside, but I've toured a bunch of properties where they have like these super amenities where they got like, oh, we got a whole back section with a game room and ping pong and billiards and golf simulators and things like that, all of which sounds pretty cool, but like there's never anybody in, a game room and video game room and a movie theater. And it's like, nobody's ever using those things. And I just don't think you don't get the rent premiums that everybody thought they were going to get from those, just because everybody's busy and everybody can do everything in their own room, streaming and everything. It's
that's the thing. Yeah. There's not enough incentive for them to go, if you want to play ping pong, maybe. And you're like, you got a buddy going, let's go play ping pong. I don't have a ping pong.
Or the golf simulator. I think that one might
have a screen.
But how many people of your tenants, it's for the whole property. So it's like, are you going to charge a premium to every unit? Like maybe, $20 a unit because you have a golf simulator? I don't know. I don't know what pans out like that.
I mean, the same, I would imagine I would have the same response, which is like, that is a lot. It doesn't seem like it's going to really do, but I'm shocked half the time, or at least back in the day. And well, now, I mean, this community has one, but it's different. But like the pool as a thing it can be pretty hit or miss. I've been shocked a number of times going to the pool and there's just like no one there. It's like, this is a great time to be at the pool. Like, I'm kind of happy about it because I didn't want a lot of people there, but like, I'm just surprised.
Kids, when you have kids, that's when the pool becomes instrumental.
Yeah. 100%.
Because, you don't have to go anywhere. You just go throw them in the pool and they can burn a lot of energy off.
Right.
We love ours.
All right. Well, is we got the hedge. We got higher cap rate, higher cash flow. Is there anything else you want to expand on with those as far as just why we focus on them economically?
Just the higher demand. I mean, there's not a lot else to add. Those are two of the big things that, everything else is property, market, local neighborhood dependent typically. But these are the best. It's the best way I can hedge in the type of property and the type of clientele. Because if you go too far low, your risk goes up. Obviously, the lower or the older property you get, or even the lower in the tenant base, lower the class. But you know what I'm talking about, like the lower socioeconomics.
Yeah.
You start inducing risk into the property. So I like this happy medium of risk where it's a little bit higher risk than the Class A because those people are never going to get evicted. They're never going to put that on their credit. They have amazing credit scores, things like that. Class B, occasionally you have to evict somebody, but it's rare and typically you can work through it. The lower you get, it's hard. More legal fees, more things like that, and there's more risk to damaging the property with the lower socioeconomic levels. So I like to strike the happy medium in the B and C class. Workforce housing for all the reasons we discussed above, and it's a good risk level for our investors, and I think that's probably a good segue into kind of the other focus of the reason we focus so much on
I
the
think so
BNC.
too, because what I was thinking to say in response to that is actually would be part of the segue is that the model is in a way is straightforward. And I think I see that as an advantage, right? You're not trying to figure out what's the next new thing that's going to lure the high, higher income, like, kind of those amenities or those things that people are going to be like, oh, I do.
You're not experimenting with what the next trend is going to be.
What is it that the top, the top earners want or something like that? Like what's going to draw that young high earning professional to live here versus somewhere else. You don't have to do it. You're not that you don't have to, I guess that's bad phrasing, but that's not the goal. The goal is like, this is a solid, clean, nice, functional, provide you like, things that people want in a space that they are living in. And, that's it. And then when you're buying places to do value add and renovate and whatever, it's pretty clear, it's pretty straightforward. Like this is what we need to do to make
it removes happen. A lot of the brain work. Yeah.
And that's simple from a business standpoint, but it's also simple from a product standpoint, right? Of this is what we want to provide. This is what we're going for, solid, good housing. So that is part of the economics. That is part of kind of the mission. And it also kind of it also works hand in hand with what you want to go ahead and move on to, which is the mission side.
Yeah. So obviously we talk about all the time, but one of our big goals here, Capital Velocity Investments, is to get beginner investors started investing in real estate. And one of the biggest hurdle is the amount of capital it takes to get started in investing in real estate, right? Like it takes a down payment if you're going to go buy a house to rent out, or an Airbnb or what have you. So the lower we can keep that monetary barrier to entry, the more investors I'm going to be able to, that's just math. The more investors I'm going to be able to get started. So when we start talking B and C class, oftentimes they are smaller properties and they are a higher cap rate. So they demand less capital initially to purchase, all else being equal, than an A class property. So what that means is that my capital requirements, the capital requirements to take on an apartment complex investment, is going to be lower. And the lower I can keep that, the lower I can keep the minimum investment that any investor would require. Whereas, if it's a nice Class A property in a downtown metropolis, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars per unit, and it could still be. Don't get me wrong, it could still be a great investment, but it's going to if it's a 50 unit property, $200,000 a unit. Okay, we're talking $10 million on the cost. I can buy 50 units in a small, a little bit older, a little bit smaller market. I can buy 50 units for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a door. And now we're talking a much smaller capital outlay required to take that property down and get people started on real estate investing. And so, we like to, we talk about this in other podcasts and stuff, we like to tertiary, secondary markets. We don't like to be downtown in the big cities because I don't want to be fighting hedge fund money or institutional money when we're talking about, on who I'm outbidding to buy properties. And also those same institutional buyers don't typically come down to the B and C class properties, especially when they're value add. I think there's plenty of money to be made, and that's obviously why we focus here, but they typically don't want to get their hands that dirty. They'd rather just buy that class A in the downtown that they know there's going to be plenty of demand for because it's a huge city, and there's a gazillions of people, and that hedges all their bets. And they don't want to make a lot of moving parts and do a lot of heavy lifting in terms of value add or anything like that. Typically, all that to say, it helps us achieve our goal of getting people started in real estate investing. And it doesn't, again, I think the returns are, my wealth is built on the same concept, the same as alongside all my investors. So that's there's still plenty of money to be made for for our more advanced investors that we have, and we have plenty of those. But they're able to understand the philosophy every bit as well, so they can invest as much as they want in any of the properties. But the minimum, the lower we can keep the minimum, the more access people have to this type of investment.
Right. I mean, just to go back to your point about the happy medium, if you go much lower, the financing, this may be wrong and we could take this out if this is like a complete miss, but if the bank comes in and assesses a property's value and or risk at too high, it might require more capital to take it down, because they're not going to give you as good of terms, or it's loan to value is going to be shifted. If so, you don't want to be too low.
Yeah, that's true. They'll assess that risk, and having the value add helps because they'll assess a portion of the value add. They'll go, hey, we're going to give you, a little bit of credit for this. We know it should be doing more. There's expenses are too high, the income's too low, whatever it is, to a certain extent. But yeah, bank metrics run a little bit differently because they do assess higher risk to smaller markets like the downtown. Okay. Oftentimes they'll give amazing terms to the downtown loft apartments in New York City because of the very, very robust demand, millions of people, that kind of thing.
Right.
So there's very low risk in terms of demand, whereas a smaller market, hey, if the factory shuts down, what's that going to do to the populace here? It's just a smaller,
right.
A smaller pool of tenants to pull from. So they do typically run their risk a little bit differently than I would, than I do. But that's because I'm doing the research and I know what's going on in my select markets. They just have they have literally A, B, and C class markets. Like, they don't call them that, but think of it like that. It's like A is the Atlanta, Dallas, New York. B is your Indianapolis, Kansas City, and then C, and on down, like to till you get to your little one stoplight little town.
Right. So I get what you're saying there. I was also thinking that it's the reason, and I'm going somewhere else with this, but the reason you don't want to buy, this is not how you would actually phrase it, but I guess you could think about it as like too much of a value add, i.e., this is in a good spot, but there's going to be lots of work that needs to be done to this. And therefore, of course, that's going to raise your CapEx. Or this could really be something, but because it's fallen in such disrepair or because of management's so bad, the occupancy has gone down to like 60%. Right. So like those kind of things can't go too low. That also would affect the ability to take it down with a loan.
The type of financing you would get. Your best stable long-term fixed rate lenders would not be interested in 60% vacancy or occupancy or disrepair. Yeah, exactly. That's
because even if if we did all this, we could get it up. That's not. You could still buy the property. It just wouldn't be with the
not with that initially. You could have it as part of your goal. Like, hey, we're going to refinance into one of those types of loans, but you're going to have to buy with much riskier, higher percentage interest rate debt. Yeah. Shorter term.
Or just a lot more capital.
True.
I just brought that up as kind of like another way that the happy medium works, but I was going to ask you, in these conversations with newer investors or new investors or beginning investors or however you want to phrase it, people that are just kind of starting to dip their toe or find out what this is, what are the kind of conversations you have when like they see the properties that we own?
Honestly, go ahead.
I mean, I just
Expand.
maybe I'm just projecting here, but I could see a scenario where if you're not, you know, you're new, right? You're new to the thing, and you're like, okay, an investment is going to be like this, you know, like see this great thing, and it's going to be
a nice, beautiful. Yeah, I get what you're saying. So not all of our properties look beautiful,
right?
But they don't have to be, because people are paying commensurate with what we're providing, and it depends on where you are in the market, and on an older property, it oftentimes doesn't make sense to, you know, put lovely flower beds and, you know, sculpted trees and bushes and hedges and things. It doesn't make a lot of sense because people aren't. It's a 1970s cinder block property, and it's like, no, you make it clean, you make it safe, you don't want it to look overrun or anything, but honestly, the tenants aren't going to appreciate it the same way as you would in a B plus apartment complex where, you know, you're towards the top of the market. It all depends on what kind of tenants you're trying to attract with that specific building and your business plan. And we have anywhere from really beautiful kind of B plus properties that are absolutely gorgeous to kind of just run of the mill, solid, functional, just like we talked about, you know, that solid C plus property that makes every bit as much cash flow dollar per dollar as the beautiful properties, because of where it is and what its purpose is in that affordable housing matrix, as it were.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, I could just be influenced by my background and just my things, just me. Let's just say me, just me. But I think a lot of people also, when they hear multifamily and they hear, you know, they think about apartments, or they think about, I think the fact that some of them are just one story. I'm just putting this out there, that the one story thing throws people off. I think it does. I think they're assuming 2-3 stories, like the apartment complex, right? That's what they're thinking. And this is like, nope, it's one story. There's 10 buildings, and they're 4 units each. I don't know. I'm just putting
a common thing for affordable housing. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I mean, yeah, that's true. Apartment, you know, it doesn't have to be the megalopolis with 28 buildings that are all 3 stories in gray and with the white trim, and we've all seen along the major highways.
There, you know, you got the same stair with the concourse. Yeah,
sure. Yeah, I mean, it varies, and that's not to say those aren't good investments either. But for what we're trying to accomplish and where I see the best hedges, I think the B and C class is the place to focus.
Yeah. I don't know. Just that was an interesting thing to me. I think I was wondering, do you have conversations about that part at all, or is it usually
not really? People they may think it. Maybe they don't want to offend me and say like, oh, that doesn't look as beautiful as I was hoping it would look. You know, because you think a lot of people here, you know what flipping houses is, right? Like, you know, the whole point of flipping a house is to make it like maximize curb appeal and make it look super sharp from the outside, and then, you know, on the inside as well. It's like, yeah, you could do that, but you'd be wasting a lot of money, because you're not going to get the rent that would be required to make that economically worthwhile, you know, to get the returns on your investment. And you just got to know that. So like, we've put Formica countertops in a bunch of places, and they're, you know, kind of our C plus, because it's totally fine, and it's not worth the cost to put the granite in, and we're not going to, tenants wouldn't pay the rent bump that we would. They'd much rather have just nice, solid, good looking Formica countertops that they don't have to pay a premium for, because they, you know, here's what they can afford, and we're not going to bump them out of that, because then we're not accomplishing our mission, and we're hurting ourselves. We're over improving. You can over improve a property.
Right.
I've written about that before too. So it's all about knowing your market, your ideal tenant for a particular property, and doing the maximizing the value provided to them and the rent they will pay for that.
Right. The big, beautiful, having flipped the house, want to make it look amazing thing. I think the other side of it, and this, again, I'm just speculating at this point. When you propose something to investors, you take pictures, and yes, you don't want to take crappy pictures, but you're also not trying to like overgloss them, because you want people, you need to be straightforward about this is what they look like. Yeah. But I think people in their minds we've all I think, had this happen where you look at anything online and it's like filtered and angled to the max.
Oh yeah. You get there,
especially
and
if it's a house that you're trying to flip and sell. You're going to Zillow, you're going to all those different sites, and not to call out Zillow specifically, but you're going to all of those sites, and it is, every single part of the house looks just absolutely gorgeous. Whether it is or not, it looks incredible.
Well, Jen will talk to sellers about that and say you got to be careful doctoring up your pictures, because people are starting to use AI to doctor up their pictures of their house. And she goes, as soon as they're going to look at those pictures online, and they're going to walk into this house and they're going to go, whoa, yeah, this is not what I was promised. And she's like, you can't be doing that, because it turns them off the second they step in the door. Whereas decent pictures of reality are going to show just fine, of what you're offering. Because if you turn them off the second they walk in the door, they're never going to buy, or they're not going to pay what you want them to pay for the house.
Yeah, I think Jen and I, we kind of had a conversation about this when they came on the pod too, which is, that trying to find a place that makes it look, you don't want to hurt the space's actual look with a bad picture, but you can definitely over polish to the point that they would have been fine. I think I found this last time I was looking at houses, was like, I would have been fine with what it actually was, except that it wasn't anywhere close to what they presented it as. And that expectation gap is the problem, at which point you're just like, no, I'm out of here, because I don't. Yeah, exactly. So we can't do that really with
to investors,
right? So I think that's another, in my mind, that's kind of one of the gaps of like, here's what it is, presenting it, talking about it, and then understanding as a business what we're going for as a product. And maybe that's just all coming from me when I was first getting into this. I don't know. Although, I mean, Heritage is gorgeous townhomes, so I don't know if that was really the case. Yeah,
I think that about covers.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking about frustrations of walking in places and being like, what, this is not even close.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then now you're starting off, it's like a bad first impression. You walk into a place and you're upset already. It's like, guys, that's not how you want to start a potential sale process.
So my sister and I were walking around a neighborhood near where Tinsley was taking dance class. And it's a nice neighborhood. It's a cool area of Greenville. Very nice. One of those places that there's like big homes and there's townhomes and there's like smaller towns, but it's all together and there's a park. It's very cool. But we were walking by some of the nicer homes, and one of them had a for sale sign. And so Bethany was like, oh, let's look it up. So like, we looked it up or whatever, like on the slide, like over here, just walking around. And it was so doctored. It was a gorgeous house. Like, we're talking $1 million plus house. Like it wasn't doctored in that like they had to make it look nicer than it was, but just because they were really close, all the houses were really close, because this is in like a compact area. They had angled the picture so much that my sister insisted a number of times that I had the wrong house. We're standing there looking at it and looking at
because they basically blocked out the other houses.
Yeah, they made it look like it was way exactly.
Alone on a hill somewhere. Yeah,
well, not that bad, but close enough where it was like, very much clearly like I was like, oh, and somehow they got like the light perfect, like because there was trees on the line. It was nice, very nice trees, like very nice and shady, but for a picture, probably not the best. So somehow all of a sudden it was like, they're just standing in a glow of sunlight. And like, and she like multiple times was like, is this the right house? I was like, it is, it's gotta be. Yeah. Anywho. Yeah. I gotta say, here's my rule. I've always said this. I'd rather be less photogenic than more photogenic, because I don't want to show up and not meet expectations, right? If they see me and like the picture doesn't do me justice, that's fine.
I think your complexion saves you from having any worries with that, because you just glow is going to be the word I'm going to use.
Yeah, I don't think that ends up being a good thing. But anyways, okay, we've gone way off track. All right, that's probably it for now. We really appreciate you hanging out and being a part of our conversations about multifamily investing, and we're excited about the fact that the economic and the mission, the philosophy and the market go hand in hand here for this. So if you've got any questions about that or any comments, comment on the Substack, comment on the YouTube, Spotify, email us, capitalvelocityinvestments.com. You can go and just hit the little bot there. It sends it to me and Matthias. If you reach out, we will get back to you, and we would love to hear from you. Until then, we really hope you'll come back and be with us again on another edition of the Get Invested podcast.
See ya.